What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome in to week 6 of the Lowe Down. Last week's record was a nice, shiny 13-3, bringing the yearly record to 51-16. We went 3-0 on the upsets. Took TCU, Oklahoma State, and Wake Forest, and they all ding were hitters. So that brings the record to 4-2 on the upsets of the week. All right, first of all, right off the bat, I've been hearing a lot of this talk about analytics in football, okay? Teams driving down the field, not kicking a field goal to take a lead or cap a drive. Teams driving all the way down to the goal line and not kicking a field goal to take the lead when there's less than like 2 minutes in the game. Teams going for it on 4th and 10 because the analytics. Look, dude, what happened to just using your brain? I mean, some of these decisions in games, and I'm seeing from coaches, I just do not understand what they are doing. And all 4 times that I saw the analytics being used last week, none of them worked. And it cost teams games. So I don't know where this term came from. I mean, I'm a baseball guy. I watch a lot of baseball. I can understand it. You know, you don't want to pitch to a guy that's hitting 500 off of you and, 20 plate appearances or something like that. But, when it comes to football, if you drive down the field, kick a field goal, especially on your first drive. I mean, the team that didn't do it was the Cleveland Browns against the Atlanta Falcons. And I've been covering some Atlanta Falcons stuff and then doing some Atlanta Falcons work. But and they lose by 3 points. I mean, I just don't understand what's going on when it was a 4th and 4. It's not like a 4th and a half inch, but kick a field goal, take a lead. Your team drove down the field, get some momentum. At least you're ahead in the game. I mean, I just don't understand the logic behind it. I mean, and in the Buffalo Bills-Baltimore Ravens game, Baltimore had a chance to take it. It was a tie game. It was wet conditions. They had a chance to take a lead on 4th and 2. Lamar Jackson throws an interception in the end zone. And then Buffalo drives down the field and they win the game. I mean, I just don't understand. But, I'm a believer of, especially when you're playing stiff competition, take the points. Don't start chasing points. Kick an extra point. Don't go for 2 early in a game. I mean, there's time to do that when you have to do it, for sure. But don't do it unless you don't have to do it. And I just think it's common sense. I mean, and I'm not seeing a lot of common sense in the NFL or college football when it comes to just taking points anymore. I mean, I just don't understand it. But keep that in mind, moving forward, because like I said, the game has changed so much here in the last couple of years. But I mean, when you're playing a good team, you need to take any points you can get in the time. I mean, and if anything, you put pressure on the other team because you're ahead. And if your offense drives down the field and say it sputters out at the 15-yard line, instead of going for it on 4th and 4 and not getting it and be like, man, we just drove down the field and we didn't get any points, and give all the momentum back to the other team when they shouldn't even really have any. I mean, sports and football and competition, especially when you're playing good teams, is about sucking energy out of teams. Make them earn everything. Don't give the opponent opportunities and momentum. Suck it from them. Take it from them. I mean, and I just don't understand. And moving forward, I mean, I'm going to keep an eye on this, and I want you to as fans, because it's just dumb. I mean, I just don't get it. I mean, and, like being in a 10-point game, and choosing to go for 2. Why don't you just cut the lead to 10 when you can cut it to 10, why don't you just cut the lead to 10 instead of going for 2? And if you don't get it, now the lead's 11. So you have to get a 2-point conversion, and you have to get a field goal or have to get 2 touchdowns. It don't make no sense. And with that said, let's get to the games. Again, the season record is 51-16. Starting to figure some teams out. We're starting to separate the who's pretty good and who's average. There's still a lot to be determined here, though, moving forward. There's some more big games that I want to see what happens this weekend. And we'll start 11 o'clock game in the SEC, Tennessee at LSU. Not sure if Cedric Tillman's going to play in this game. I know he has surgery on his ankle. Josh Heupel didn't really give an update. He said it's still questionable. If I were to guess, I would think he wouldn't play. I mean, you don't want to risk losing the guy for the rest of the year. He's that good of a player. I mean, and so the big thing in this game, LSU, they have good athletes, all right, but Auburn pushed them around pretty good running the ball last week. And LSU's offense only scored 14 points on Auburn. So I just don't know if they're going to have the firepower to keep up with the Vols. I mean, because that Vols offense is legit. But as soon as I say that, LSU will probably win. But I'm going to go with Tennessee here. I mean, Tennessee doesn't have a great defense, but they're not that bad. And with that offense, I just think Hendon Hooker has a big day against the LSU secondary. And I just think Tennessee goes in there and gets it done. I'll say 34-27. Early game in the Big 12. The Kansas Jayhawks, Rock Chalk Jayhawks. Dude, again, ESPN Game Day is there in Lawrence. So what a story in college football. Jalen Daniels is a dynamic dual threat there at quarterback for them. They put up points. Leipold's their coach. He's going to be a hot commodity. I have a feeling in the offseason. But TCU showed me something last week, and I said it last week. They were one of my upsets last week against Oklahoma. Max Duggan there at quarterback, dual threat. They're a good running team. Tay Barber's a really good wide receiver. I think TCU goes in there and gets it done, and it's going to be a shootout. But I say TCU 47, Kansas 40. Arkansas at Mississippi State. I said it. I like Mississippi State. And if it wasn't for a couple bonehead decisions by Mike Leach and a muff punt inside the 10 for Mississippi State, I think they probably would have beaten LSU. And Arkansas right now, I mean, their defense is depleted. And they play pretty good run defense, but their pass defense can be had, man, right now, because they just got a lot of injuries. Been that back seven. Catalone was one of them. And I like Will Rogers and his guys at home. I mean, I think, like I said, I think Mississippi State's a dangerous team. I think they're a real dangerous team. They blocked a field goal for a touchdown last week. And they attack you in a lot of ways. So I'm going to go Mississippi State. I think they win handily here. I'm going to say Mississippi State 47, Arkansas 30. 2:30 game, Auburn at Georgia. Okay. Once again, I have no idea what Brian Harsin is thinking. On a couple of calls, I mean, it seems like the guy just goes for it every fourth down now. I mean, and Auburn should have won that game last week against LSU, but you got to give LSU credit. They fought back. I mentioned something about B.J. Ojulari. He has a strip sack. Ward picks the ball up and scores. That was a huge play in the game, and Ojulari is an impact player, and you keep an eye on him when they play Tennessee. I mean, he's that kind of a player. I mean, Tennessee, but I think Tennessee's offensive line's pretty good. So, but on this Auburn-Georgia game, Auburn is 129th in the country in turnover margin. They've given away the ball 12 times through 5 games. I mean, that's just a recipe for disaster. I mean, you saw it last week. Scoop score for a touchdown. Then they on down there around the goal line, they run a reverse with wide receiver, and Coy Moy just throws it right to the LSU defender. I mean, it's huge plays in the game. And, you know, I was sold on Georgia being the best team in the country. And I don't know what's happened in them last couple of weeks. I was really shocked last week when Missouri's defensive front kind of pushed them around. And even Kirby Smart said it to Cole Kublik at halftime. He said, we're just getting pushed around up front. I mean, that was surprising to me. Robbie Ashford threw for over 300 yards passing last week. Brandon Council, Auburn's starting center. Now, Auburn's offensive line looked better last week. I will say that looked better, and so did their pass rush. But Council went out and said something like they're going to dominate Georgia's defensive line. Dude, don't ever give teams incentive. I mean, what are you thinking, man? I mean, like, earlier in the year, too, Brandon Council, when TJ Finley had a great play backed up on the goal line and against Penn State, he runs, gets the first down, and Brandon Council runs up and knocks the Penn State guy in the back and gets a personal foul called back to him, right back up to where they were. And then he's over on the sideline doing this. No coach gets on to him. You know, that man, you can't act that way. That's not how good teams operate. You know, let your play do the talking. You know, I mean, the Auburn's offensive line has been getting whipped. And now you're going to say you're going to dominate Georgia's defensive line? I mean, come on, man. But I think Georgia's going to be motivated from that too. I mean, and this, you know, Auburn, Georgia, it's always a good ball game. Georgia, I think, won by 24 points last year. Georgia's dominated this series over the last, 20 years. Stetson Bennett. I mean, I think Auburn, if Georgia blocks the way they did last week, Stetson Bennett's going to be in for a rough day because Auburn does have pass rusher. And I think Iko Leota, he's out. So that's huge because he's one of Auburn's best pass rushers. But, you know, Georgia still has a good running game. You got Brock Bowers over there, too. I think, you know, one of the top 5 players in America. It's almost a 30-point line. But, you turn the ball over against Georgia, it's a recipe for disaster. And until Auburn proves that they can hold on to the ball and play a clean game, I just don't have any faith in them. And I was pleased to see how Robbie Ashford, I think the kid hadn't played in a couple of years. He was a baseball player. But I think you're starting to see he has a lot of upside as a quarterback. He's just got to start doing some small things. And I think Greg McElroy pointed it out. He has a tendency to roll right. And when you do that, defensive coordinators, they can bring pressure in your face, you know, or, you know, you get so accustomed to rolling right, you don't know who's behind you. And then all of a sudden, somebody like B.J. Ojulari catches up with you and knocks the ball away. So you got to be conscious of that. I mean, it'd rather be drop back and go up the field rather than going out and around because too much speed in SEC, too much speed. You know, unless you have a really good offensive line or the play's designed to go that way and you got backside protection. But I like Georgia here, and I think they're going to handle Auburn pretty good. I'll go Georgia 38, Auburn 16. Texas Tech at Oklahoma State. Spencer Sanders, Oklahoma State. They're one of my upset teams last week. They got it done. I think they're playing really good football. You know, that Big 12 race is starting to get interesting. I like Oklahoma State at home here, and I'll say 38-24. Big game in the Pac-12. This is my upset of the week. Utah at UCLA. I think it's a 2:30 game on Fox. Dorian Thompson-Robinson looks like a different player there at quarterback for UCLA. Chip Kelly looks like he's got a pretty good team. I watched him last week. I was really impressed with their defense. They can get after the quarterback, and that will be interesting. I think Utah's kind of got it together a little bit, but I like UCLA here. Bobo, wide receiver there for UCLA, is a really good player. Big kid, tough, has 21 receptions for 383 yards and 3 TDs this year. Zach Carbonet is a good running back. He's been a veteran running back there. I like UCLA 31, Utah 28. Big Ten, Ohio State at Michigan State. Look, Michigan State's just not that good. And that's kind of surprising to me. I thought this was going to be a pretty good year for them, but too much firepower for Ohio State right now. They're starting to click, and I like Ohio State big here. I like Ohio State 48, Michigan State 17. Ole Miss at Vandy. Hey, anything can happen, right? Ole Miss coming off a huge emotional win. Kentucky pretty much gave them the game. You got to give, on just simple mistakes. They missed a field goal, had a field goal blocked, missed an extra point, didn't get a 2-point conversion, which, like I said, you start chasing them points. End of the games, it comes back to bite you. But Kentucky scored the potential game-winning touchdown and had to come off the board because of illegal motion. So Ole Miss needs to be careful of the letdown here. You need to be careful of that letdown, going in there thinking you can just put your helmet on and win the game. Quinshawn Judkins, tie for the SEC lead with 6 touchdowns. He's 11th nationally ranked in rushing. He's a kid out of Alabama, true freshman. I guess the in-state schools didn't think he was good enough. So what a gem Ole Miss found in him. So I'll go Ole Miss. I think they did this kind of methodically. I'll say Ole Miss 37, Vanderbilt 14. Clemson at Boston College. Clemson seems to be playing pretty good football. Their offensive line is pretty good. I've noticed they can protect pretty well, giving DJ Uiagalelei a nice pocket to throw from. So that's always a good thing when you can stand in the pocket and not get hit. Ask some other teams about that. Will Shipley doing a heck of a job there at running back for Clemson. So I like Clemson to go into Boston College and get a pretty big win here. I'll go 48, Boston College 17. Washington State at USC. Excuse me, before I get to that one. Southern Miss at Troy. This should be a pretty entertaining game. Troy rallied Jarrett Doege last week, rallied Troy to a big win over Western Kentucky. Don't know if it'll be him starting at quarterback or Gunnar Watson. But I'll go with Troy right here. I'll go 30-24. Actually, 30-23. Washington State at USC. I mentioned something about turnover margin a minute ago. USC is ranked first in America in turnover margin. And when you have a good offense and you can turn people over, that's a good recipe for winning. And Caleb Williams is doing a heck of a job there at quarterback. Travis Dye is doing a really good job there at running back. He has 422 yards and 5 TDs on the ground. Washington State has a pretty good offense. Cameron Ward's a good quarterback. He's just kind of turnover prone. And what I just say, USC causes turnovers. Not a good recipe for Washington State. I think this could be an entertaining game, though. Kaline Bullock, defensive back there for USC, good looking player. He's a sophomore. He's got 2 interceptions, 1 return for a touchdown. So I think this is going to be a pretty good ball game, though. I like USC 44, Washington State 34. South Carolina at Kentucky. South Carolina, they were the darling media pick, entering the year, and they're just not getting it done. They got some good players, but they turned the ball over, and their defense isn't that good. Kentucky kind of gave away that game last week, I thought, to Ole Miss. That was a heck of a game too, by the way. Both teams could have won that game easy. So Will Levis there at quarterback. He got banged up in that game last week, but he hung in there and played tough. I think he had a dislocated finger, and he hurt his ankle. So that tells me right there the guy's tough. I mean, he's a tough player. He's a big kid. I like UK to roll here, though. I think Kentucky wins 34, South Carolina 23. Gonna hit on Wake Forest, Army at Wake Forest. Dave Clawson's probably going to get a big time head coaching job. They whipped Florida State last week, and you're winning at Wake Forest. I mean, that's not easy to do, and his offense is unique. It's run oriented, and you got a guy like Sam Hartman who can chunk it around. So their only loss was to Clemson, but I just wanted to throw that out there, mention his name. I think Wake Forest rolls here because Army's not that good. I'll say Wake Forest 38, Army 20. But keep an eye on them. And if your team's looking for a coach, check them out. See what you like. Kansas State at Iowa State. Adrian Martinez, the revival. You got to love a guy that leaves Nebraska. Everybody always dogged him and Deuce Vaughn. This little Deuce Vaughn, he's like 5'5", like 190 pounds, but he is shifty. I mean, like, he reminds me of Darren Sproles, who also played for the Kansas State Wildcats. So I like Kansas State. Weird line here, 1-point line, but I like Kansas State going to Iowa State and get a win. I'll say 34, Iowa State 27. Texas A&M at Alabama. Jimbo. Woo! You better be ready because the Tide's going to be pissed off, running that mouth. Jimbo and Saban, the feud is supposedly over. We're about to find out. Crimson Tide. Everybody was like Bryce Young. Oh, look, I'm not saying this in a rude way, but I'm sure some fan bases and fans around the country are like, oh, Bryce Young's hurt. Oh, we got a shot. Jalen Milroe. I talked to Philip Jordan. Me and him talked about this guy before the season began. Pound for pound, strongest guy on the team. 3rd and 15 in the third quarter. He makes an all-SEC, almost nearly all-American linebacker, potentially bumper pool. Looked like he was playing high school ball. As he juked and jived and ran for 77 yards to set up a big-time score, which flipped the game. So I don't know the status of Young. I don't think many people do. I hope he's not going to be out too long. I mean, I hope the kid bounces back because he's a really good player and he's fun to watch. But you have a dynamic player in Milroe. There's no doubt about it. Bama does. And, Devin Achane, I will say this for A&M, he's a heck of a player. But the loss of Anaya Smith there at wide receiver for A&M was a major blow. They just don't really have a lot of options in the passing game now. And playing Alabama, that's not a good thing because you need to be able to stretch the field in Alabama, throw the ball deep. And their cornerback play has been a little suspect. It's getting better, though. I mean, Alabama is starting to look like they're clicking on all cylinders like we kind of figured they would. I mean, they look a lot different than they did against Texas, a few weeks back. So, well, that being said, Alabama, I think they roll here. I'll say Alabama 45, Texas A&M 14. Another night game in the ACC, Florida State at NC State. Florida State, they just don't have it defensively. Wake Forest ran, scattered, smothered, and covered all around them last week. And the Noles got a pretty good offense, but, Jordan Travis there at quarterback, Wilson there is the big receiver. But, I mean, I like NC State. I like their team. I like the makeup of their team. They play good defense. Devin Leary's a veteran quarterback. NC State's won 4 of the last 5 games. So I like NC State. And I'm going to go 30-23. Oregon at Arizona. Oregon's playing good ball. Bo Nix back there at quarterback. Arizona's a tough place to play. It's a night game. Should be a pretty good crowd there in Arizona, but I like Oregon. I think this could be an interesting game, though. I don't know if Oregon goes in there and blows them out, but I think Oregon goes in there and does get the win. I'll say Oregon 38, Arizona 24. All right, guys, I put up my SEC rankings on lowdownsports.com. It's down there on the bottom on articles. And just want to say good luck to your teams this week. And hopefully none of your teams are going to follow the analytics. All right, guys. Well, y'all have a good one. Enjoy the games, and I will talk to y'all soon. See ya.